There's a lot of false information being pushed right now about multiple topics, gambling being one of them. Quite honestly, the government don't want the public to see what's really going on. But thanks to repeat freedom of information requests, that's about to change, because today I'm going to expose 7 shocking truths the mainstream media have been hiding. Multiple sources are linked in the description down below, so check them out. But first, why should you care? It's simple, because this is the Trojan horse that gives them free access to your finances, data and freedom. It's already influenced policy and thousands of people are being denied winnings because of it. Worse still, the whole thing is built on misinformation. Previously, they said that it wouldn't be allowed, and of course, they've done absolutely nothing about it. Kicking off with the first truth, a selective omission of survey results. In 2021, the Gambling Commission conducted a survey on attitudes towards affordability checks. These are the checks that sports betting companies are using to weed out winners and refuse paying out funds, but only after somebody has won. We've made several videos about it in the past, I'll link them down the bottom too. The survey's results were kept under wraps for 3 years. Initially, freedom of information requests were rejected. It was claimed that it wasn't in the public's best interest to know the results of a public consultation that the public responded to. However, thanks to repeat requests, it was released 3 years later, and now we know a staggering 77% of the survey's 12,000 responses opposed these checks. Instead of informing policy, this is critical information that was hidden away. Why? Because it didn't fit the narrative the regulators wanted to promote. It would appear that they'd already decided the outcome long before, and now thousands of honest taxpayers have been refused their own money and had to submit years' worth of financial records as a result. But it's nowhere near as manipulative or sick as the next truth on our list, because the spreading of misinformation is rife when it comes to gambling, particularly from the mainstream media. Let's talk about the manipulation and misuse of statistics. Public Health England and the Office of Health Improvement and Disparities have used flawed data to claim that up to 496 suicides a year are linked to gambling. These figures come from a Swedish survey on a group of people who were extremely troubled. Around 60% suffered from anxiety, 51% depression, 42% drug use disorders, 29% alcoholism, and just under 20% had already been diagnosed with a personality disorder. This up to 496 suicides a year statistic, along with a handful of others, have been repeated over and over again, often in the mainstream news outlets. The result? The general public have been sold an entirely false narrative that has been used to shape policy, push for stricter regulations and endorse affordability checks. This isn't just academic, it's affecting policies that directly impact you, leading to tougher restrictions and intrusive checks handled by some of the most disgusting companies on the planet. The BBC, Sky News and The Guardian have all published false narratives around suicide as it gets plenty of attention for them. It would appear that there's no interest in telling the truth. They just like to use other people's misery for advertising space. So feel free to tap the like button or share this video about. More people need to hear these truths. It gets even darker with truth number 3, because the Gambling Commission has also been funneling millions of pounds to organisations with biased agendas. Groups like the National Institute for Economic and Social Research and Gambling with Lives have received funding to produce research that openly opposes gambling. These groups have pushed narratives that aren't grounded in science. Official documents show multiple statistics about children, addiction rates, and suicide have been quoted as evidence. Some have repeatedly published false statistics too, all the while knowing that they're doing it. In short, they've received funding from government organisations to spread misinformation and shape policy. Policy that means you and I have to openly share access to our bank accounts to get paid. I personally think that it's not only wrong, but incredibly sick, especially when you consider truth number 4. Problem gambling rates are at the core of every decision, and it's extremely important. Protecting the sick and vulnerable is a compassionate thing to do, after all. However, the government's Gambling Commission recently published their new gambling survey for Great Britain. Within it, it reports a problem gambling rate of around 2.5%, compared to just 0.3% from previous NHS surveys. A massive 2.2% difference. This spike isn't because there's suddenly a massive increase in problem gambling though, but rather because of an online surveying method. In short, it overrepresents frequent gamblers. The perceived gambling problem is grossly exaggerated. When releasing these results, the Gambling Commission said that the two different rates should not be represented as a comparison, although that didn't stop The Guardian and others. And it wouldn't be the first time either. Again, it's being used as a justification to enforce intrusive affordability checks holding innocent taxpayers' winnings, and then get deep into your bank account. Many punters have been extremely angry about this for a prolonged period of time, which leads me on to truth number 5, suppression of criticism, or independent review. Criticism of these flawed methods and statistics has been consistently suppressed and drowned out. The Gambling Commission and associated bodies have totally ignored calls for transparency and accountability. They've dismissed valid critiques, allowing even more inaccurate information to shape policy and restrict your freedom. Worse still, they've attempted to censor one side of the debate whilst encouraging the other. A prime example might be the open letter of criticism that was aimed at the Racing Post. Without transparency and honesty, how can we trust anything the government says? Now, truth number 6 is really quite alarming and sensitive, so please bear with me. National suicide prevention strategies have already been formulated around many of the aforementioned data, and it's quite clearly incorrect. The Gambling Commission even mentioned it internally, as seen in a Freedom of Information request that followed a meeting over 2 years ago. The misuse of actual suicide statistics is particularly alarming. When the data itself is flawed, policies are built on extremely shaky ground, but it's easy to see why people believe them. Particularly when the mainstream media repeatedly report anecdotal stories where only half of the story is being told. As a bettor, this means we're all being subjected to policies that are more about fear-mongering and clickbait than effective regulation. Government representatives know all about it too, which leads me on to the last truth on my list: accountability. Public Health England, the Office for Health Improvement and Disparities, and the Gambling Commission have repeatedly failed to correct known errors in their reports. Instead, they've opted to propagate misleading information that has influenced policy decisions. The Gambling Commission representatives have repeatedly said that they would take action, but they haven't. Instead, when challenged, they've totally ignored it or accused those asking questions of being unreasonable or biased. It's quite remarkable. This lack of accountability has not only undermined trust in regulation and the government, but it's caused immense stress and stopped hundreds of thousands of pounds in fair winnings being paid out. Now, there's a lot more to this, and this is just a short video. The Gambling Commission's failings are far-reaching. What they've been doing isn't fair or in the taxpayer and public's interest. It's already had real-world implications for thousands of people. For example, check out these 2 videos in the end screen. Both of them are a direct result of everything mentioned.